Together for you. Let's bring in Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, former governor of West Virginia. It's good to see you, Senator. Thank you for joining us. The immediate question is, were you told about these bombings going on in Baghdad? Do you approve? Does the committee approve? And are you in favor of the president's plan?
First of all, I can't speak for all of the people on the committee. Were we told in advance? No. Did we know that it was going to happen? Pretty much so. I support the air support that we have, superior air support. I support basically our tactical and all of our technology that we're using to help those people from the barbaric terrorists and what we see going on. What I don't support, I applaud the president for putting a plan out. He put a plan out. He laid it out. What I don't agree with the plan is basically arming, trying to spend $500 million arming the Syrian rebels, whoever they may be. The ground game should be basically from those moderates, people who live in that region of the world. This should be an Arab ground war, if you will. We have proven it doesn't work, and we're not successful at doing that, nor does it help prevent anything from happening over there. It's been horrific. So with that being said, I support using our support, our technical support, our air power support. I do not believe any way, shape, or form that we should be over there trying to pick sides of who we're going to arm, who we're going to train. The only thing I know for sure, Chris, is at the end of the day, most of the arms that we give to people are used against us. Most of the people we train turn against us. And we've seen that in the last 10, 12, 13 years.
Absolutely. We've seen our own Stinger missiles found in Iran taken off the battlefields in Afghanistan. So we know what happens. But let's talk about why it's happening, because I believe Congress needs to step up here. The reason you can't figure out who to arm in Syria is because it's very difficult. The reason that you're looking at all is because you don't want to commit to U.S. troops on the ground. You know the Arabs aren't going to commit to fighting this war without U.S. troops on the ground. Is the Congress more afraid of the midterms than it is of ISIS, and that's why it won't commit to the obvious, which is to do this right, putting U.S. troops on the ground?
Well, I'm not saying that's doing it right. If you think that's doing it right, then we spent 8 years, almost $20 billion to arm a 280,000 person army in Iraq, and we saw the results of that. We've been over in that part of the world for 13 years. If money or military might would have changed it, we'd have done it by now, Chris. So to say that the right thing to do, I don't agree with that. I have a lot of my close colleagues, my friends, who I just respectfully disagree that in West Virginia, at least, we know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. This has to be a ground game by the people of that region, by the moderates who want a quality of life, who want some tranquility and peace in their life. They're going to have to be able to fight and die for their country.
Right, they won't do it, though. They're not doing it. They're not stepping up. And I'm not, be clear, Senator, I'm not giving you my idea. I'm parroting Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham says it's a fantasy that you'll do it without U.S. boots. So my question is, if it's a fantasy, then that means the reality is you need U.S. troops. Why is Congress too afraid to do anything but talk on TV and get together and debate and vote and come up with a plan?
First of all, there should not be a combined vote of a continuing resolution and something so important to the policy of this country and future generations to come to get us into a long and battered war. We've been down this road before. To think that it would be insanity to think that we can go in and win it with an air attack and no boots on the ground. If boots on the ground would have won it, then we'd have been over long ago. It would have been over long ago, Chris, and it's not. So I'm just saying, there's going to be turmoil over there. There's been turmoil for 1,400 years. It's not going to change overnight. And we as Americans in that part of the world are not going to make a difference on the quality of their life, on the type of life that they're going to live, and the direction they're going to go.
But what do you say then to your brothers and sisters who criticize the president and say, oh, well, this isn't going to work, you got to have U.S. boots on the ground, but they're afraid to take their constitutional responsibility and vote on a declaration of war, because by definition, hostilities over a long period of time is called war, no matter what the Secretary of State says.
I agree with you on that. War is war, and the bottom line is if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably war. And that's what we're dealing with over there. And the bottom line is you can't flower this stuff up and you can't make it look good and smell good. Well, our past experience, Chris, if we not learned anything from 13 years of involvement, almost $2 trillion, and the amount of blood that we have shed over there, trying to help liberate those people, and they go back to their old ways. They basically will just gravitate to whoever's the strongest kid on the block. We've seen already they're making, you know, who would think that basically here we are going in trying to pick out, we're going to train 3,000 to 5,000. We're going to say, okay, these people are fighting Assad. Now we're going to say, okay, now all of a sudden we want you to turn right and start fighting ISIS. They're going to probably say, wait a minute, ISIS is fighting Assad with us. We'll just join ISIS. You think those weapons aren't going to be used at some time in the future against Americans?
I think you make a lot of sense, but you have the majority of the people you
Let's
serve
vote.
with saying we should take on ISIS. So if they're going to say
you and I are having this conversation right now and how important it is, and it does make sense. Don't you think we ought to have the same conversation on the floor of the Senate and the floor of Congress?
Yes.
Rather than wrapping it into one, saying, okay, guys, here you are. You either vote to shut down the government, not shut down the government, but guess what's wrapped into it? A policy that might get us embroiled for years and years and years.
And they'll sue the president about executive orders on much less important issues than this, but they're letting him have free reign in conducting a war against ISIS because they're afraid of the midterms.
Think about a year ago, we were ready to, what, bomb Syria?
Yeah.
And because the purpose was to take the chemical weapons, we were able to achieve that without bombing, without lighting a fuse for the Third World War. To go in now thinking we're going to pick, when we know there's hundreds and hundreds of different sectors and segments of violence over there and terrorists, and we're going to pick and try to segregate 3,000 or 5,000 thinking they'll make a difference. We just armed 280,000. We just built an army in Baghdad, couldn't do a thing. Turned and ran and turned over the weapons, and now here we are. We have pictures of our arsenal, if you will, Humvees and MRAPs and everything else, moving into Syria that they confiscated from Mosul. Why would we want to repeat this type of performance? It makes no sense to me. I'm willing to vote. I will vote no, absolutely no, and stand tall in West Virginia to explain my vote, why I vote no to arm, to train, to spend $500 million in Syria and on Syrian rebels who I don't know who they are, what they're going to do, and if they're ever going to be loyal to America. I don't believe that will happen.
And you want no U.S. boots on the ground as well. I know you've said that before. Do you think
Absolutely.
there'll be a vote, yes or no?
Right now, I think they're going to wrap it into the CR, which is atrocious. I'm going to give a talk on the floor. I would pray to the good Lord that they let us have this vote. We've got 2 more weeks. They can't say, oh, Joe, if you vote against this, you're voting basically against shutting down the government. I said, no, I'm not. I'm voting to stay here for the next 2 weeks until the end of September. I think we should have the debate and have the vote, and I think we should separate the CR from the vote. And it should be 2 things, Chris. It should be, are we voting, first of all, of air support? I vote totally in favor of air support, tactical and technical support. Absolutely. I do not vote for boots on the ground. I do not vote for putting $500 million in trying to arm the rebels and train them. Now, with that being said, have that vote. Let's see where we all stand. I can live with it.
I think that they're coming into the midterms. There may be some big surprises for people. Leadership is about now and voting on this issue. I think if they don't, it won't be seen any other way. Senator Manchin, thank you for standing up, talking to us this morning. Always a pleasure to have you on a new day.
Good to be with you.